So I do have a lot of, a variety of my work over here. And I did fall in love with watercolors, and I've been pretty obsessed. I really like the breadth and variety of techniques that you can use. I enjoy the detail, but I also enjoy really abstract and intuitive. So I thought tonight I'd share my abstract landscapes. I started doing these pretty close to the beginning of when I started my little watercolor journey, and it's kind of a further expression, I guess, and a use of a lot of the swatching and just playing with watercolors that I did really at the beginning. And that's part of why I started doing this, I think. And it also, at least the way I do it, it tends to use a lot of earthier colors and granulating paints that I really, really like. I use mostly Daniel Smith, not exclusively, but mostly because they have such a nice variety and of those granulating and mineral colors, and they just do interesting things. So that's part of the reason I enjoy doing this. I brought a few of kind of my more favorite pigments, and I've got them on the handout. But there are way more than that. And I also have here my little swatch book that I started playing with different combinations to see what they would do, and especially use these. I reference this a lot of times when I want to do an abstract abstract landscape. I'm not sure what I want to do, but this gives me an indicator of kind of what a combination will look like. And I've done a lot. I did a lot with a whole bunch of different colors earlier, and I've kind of gotten to where I really only use about 3 colors at a time. But this is not that easy to pass around. If you want to pass it around, you can, or come look at it later. And then I've got a lot of what I did at the. You guys can see this, can't you?
Yeah,
I keep forgetting that.
see
A lot. I just when I first was starting, and I bought way too many paints. But when I didn't know what else to do, I just do combinations, and I did this whole little system here. I've got a list somewhere in here of how I did this to try and just do a lot of the combinations, just to kind of get a feel for them and play with them, and that's part of what just sucked me in. Of the concept Connie was talking about earlier, of letting watercolor do what it wants to do, and just watching it play. So I've put, you guys can see I don't have to do this. I put 3 colors out. I don't put a ton of color out because I'm miserly sometimes. Well, and there's another reason. So, and this is my very weird way of doing things, but then this is my poorly stretched paper. So these two are the same combination of pigments, and this one was pretty heavy pigment load on this, and this one was much lighter. There are things I like about this, but to me this one really draws me in, and it kind of sings more. It's got more something, and it's not, neither one of these are done. I'll fuss with them some more. Probably not a whole lot on this one, but thank you, Connie.
All right, there you go. That way we've got it.
Now they're upside down, but yeah.
No, the other way was right.
Well, they're opposite. They're going opposite directions, the two of them, because I didn't want to cut the paper up. Pardon? Oh.
No, I was.
Okay. So part of what I like is the lighter, softer kind of.
So you just cut up your credit cards.
Yeah, or a key card from a hotel or whatever you want to use. So yeah, it just, and this is super imprecise. And I already did it different than I meant to do it, but that's okay too.
You get nice variation in the line that way.
You do. And And for me, these abstract landscapes are indicative of a lot of the wetlands around the area and places I've walked and enjoyed being. So you can do the water first, but and just do it down almost to the line. And usually I do it on the top and the bottom. And then just hit that line. This is such an exact science. And part of what I've started trying to do more when I'm doing those swatches is to kind of make notes to myself, the colors that are pushy, that kind of take over, and colors that aren't. So my lunar blue here has just like disappeared. But I'll fix that. And in the bottom, I usually try and leave some white space. So I didn't get much sky action, so I'm just going to take. And I got
Can you
it.
tell us once more your colors, because I...
Sure,
there was
sure.
one I didn't
The colors I'm using on this are yellow ochre, lunar blue,
get.
and if I'm saying it correctly, Piemontite. Piemontite. What was that?
It's the resident rat.
Sounds like the resident bear.
Somebody we like.
I love this
Yeah.
granulating, but I also really like the blooming.
Have you tried it having different colors on your card as you go across? I've seen some on Facebook where they put different colors
Well,
instead of just one.
so this is all three colors
Oh, you
when
had
I
all
went
three
across
colors
there,
on
yeah.
it.
But the blue didn't come
Yeah,
up,
it
so
didn't,
that's why, yeah, and the yellow didn't that much either.
Okay.
So, and it's gonna be different every time I do it, so. But I can add a little. And really then I just kind of let it sit and let it dry, and then I'll come back. Well, but sometimes I'll start pulling out. And I always think that a stick or something's a good idea, but it rarely works great for me. Pull out some grass or some, and the reflections. Tree trunks, grass, bushes. And that is how complicated this is. And I like to put some birds. I do birds flying in the sky or herons standing on the ground in the front.
And you like the hot press paper better because
You see this, the way this is granulating here? It's, I mean, it kind of does that with cold press, but it also kind of, I don't know, gets lost in the crevices and stuff. It's not, it
This
does,
is-
it's different.
hot press is smoother.
Yes, hot press is very smooth, which I wouldn't have, logically, I wouldn't have thought that would lend itself so well to this, but I like it. But next week I may change my mind.
Have you ever used UPO?
I've used UPO for alcoholics,
Okay.
and I like it for that. Every time I've tried to do it with watercolor, I haven't been thrilled with the results, but it may be that I was trying to control it too much. I don't know. I know people use it and do, well, they do a lot of things with it that I haven't figured out how they're doing yet, but. So I'll leave that aside for a minute and I'll talk about cold wax and then we'll come back and see what we want to do next. So finishing with cold wax, yes, because I didn't want to deal with glass. I don't like it usually. I don't like it always reflects. I mean, there's non-reflecting and I have started for some things. I'm doing some paper cutting and layering and in watercolor that I'm sealing with the cold wax, but I'm also putting it under glass because there's no way that's
You
going
don't
to.
want people touching it.
Not just touching it, but how would you possibly keep that clean when it's? Yeah, right. So for those things, I am putting them under art class. But I started researching online and found that not a lot, but some watercolor artists were using a cold wax medium, and it's beeswax and resin, which it's really basically the same as encaustic, which is also beeswax and resin. But this stays soft and pliable in room temperature, whereas encaustic you have to melt and I do that sometimes too. I've used encaustic and it gives another whole different finish. It can be almost like enamel, but it's also, I've done it on rough arches paper, and then I can get really textured with some things I like. But when I first started doing this, all the videos I saw, all the instructions I saw said you have to mount it on something very stable. So I started gluing them onto hardboard, which particularly when I insist on doing weird sizes, means I have to cut the hardboard. I am not a fan of power tools. And hand sawing this stuff got to be a big pain. And then I saw somebody else I really like on Instagram that was doing this, and she wasn't mounting it on anything. I'm like, you don't mount this? She's in Colorado. So I'm pretty sure, because then I started not mounting it and just putting it on a mat, and then I ended up with, it started getting wavy. So I'm like, well, that's not going to work, not here. So then now I've started mounting it on archival foam core. I've gone through challenges with that. I either have, I've used Yes paste, which is, I started using it because it was supposed to be friendly with encaustic. And I thought, if I want to do encaustic, it's very thick. It's hard to get it even and not end up with a bubble in the middle. So then I started using liquid glue, and then the foam core starts warping because foam core is on paper and it warps. So now I have determined, I have been going to House of 10,000 Picture Frames, and they've cut down some frames for me, and they can mount on archival foam core with some kind of heat tool, which means I have to take it to them before I put the cold wax on. But it's not expensive and it solves my problem. And that's what I'm going with for now. That could change again later.
Well, could you
But
go through your steps?
yeah, the steps are really simple. If I'm mounting it, it's mounted, and then I usually do it with my hands, but probably better to take a paper towel and rub it in. That's it.
This is the cold wax.
This is the cold wax. I rub it in, I let it all over, I let it set 8 hours overnight. I usually do 3 or 4 layers depending. Can you see?
Your paint doesn't move when you're from that?
No, and when I first started doing it, I was spraying it with a fixative, And then I just tried it, no problem. I've had no problem. I also when I first started doing this and selling them, I was telling people, don't put it in a hot place, and then I had a show in Springboro where they were sitting out on a rack in 100 degrees for 8 hours all day, no problem. So I quit doing that. I don't see that there's no evidence that there's really a problem with doing that.
And where do you get that? Find it online?
Yeah, I get it on Amazon. I also just got Gamblin. I put Gamblin on there because I just started using. I got somebody was at Blix when it was on sale, and they got me this huge thing of it that I've started using, and I seem to like it just as well. So this apparently is primarily used. Maybe you guys know about it, for oil paint, and you can mix the oil paint pigments with it. Apparently that's kind of what it was designed for and primarily used for. The pastels, I have also mixed pastel, like pan pastels, but you can mix oil color pigments in it. You can mix pastels in it, and I have done that, not on any that I have here, and kind of enhanced something that I was like, oh, this is a little too dull, and just added a little something.
So you just grab that with your fingers and you spread a layer across that? and
Yep.
do that? Are you looking to make sure it's evenly spread?
I just, not really, because I can, and I think I can pass this around in just a minute. Half of it's got cold wax on it and the other half doesn't. The right half has cold wax on it. The one thing that I don't like about it, one of the colors that I really like of Daniel Smith is kyanite. It's this blue that's in the sky, and I think you will be able to see if I pass this around that putting cold wax or encaustic on it, it has some shimmer. Well, that's gone once you put something over the top of it, so, yeah.
How can you sure in on pastel?
Yeah, if you can mix it in with this. You can mix pastel in with this to add a little color to the cold wax. Not laying it on there and then, yeah, that's not what I meant. I didn't explain that, but the same with the oil pigment. I wasn't putting it directly on the painting, and I was mixing it with the cold wax first, just for a little. I haven't done anything really strong with that, but
You have to wait between applications.
It's
and full wax.
by like, I don't know, 6 or 8 hours, and you can buff it up a little bit with a nylon. So this one, I put some more there, and it can get a little, encaustic can, and this can, I guess, get a little cloudy over time. I don't know that I've seen that happen, but if it does, you can just buff it up a little bit with and I can pass both of these around. Now I've put more cold wax over here, so it's going to be a little bit
So I have a question.
disconcerting.
So, I've been told, and I haven't been doing watercolor very long, that you can't really use anything other than watercolor or maybe acrylic or acrylic, water-based acrylics, and to be
In a show?
in a show.
It depends on the show, yeah. And
So
if you do that, then it's mixed media. You're not in the watercolor class. Wax? I don't know. I haven't had anybody,
Yeah.
and excuse
You
me,
won't tell.
allergies. I've entered less shows than I am trying to put my work out and sell it. I want to sell it so I can keep doing it, because I want to keep doing it.
Okay.
So I've been less concerned about that. I don't know.
Yeah, I was wondering.
I don't know, honestly. If it's a real purist show, then yeah, it might be that would be a problem.
I
And
know
some
in the Ohio
shows say
Watercolor
you have to have
Society,
glass on.
I had a question
What's that?
about using
Some
hand
shows you have to-
pastel. And
Excuse me.
it is not allowed on Ohio Watercolor Society because it is not water-based. So I did
Right.
email them because I didn't want to give wrong
The pan pastels,
information.
yeah.
I was told you could, or somebody I was watching said, oh, it's acceptable.
Hmm.
It's technically for that organization, no.
Sure, sure. And it may be the same with cold wax. I don't know.
I don't know either.
That's
I don't
interesting too, because I would say that like that's the way like you're finishing it.
Right,
You know, it's like putting fixative over a graphite or charcoal piece.
right. I just don't know.
Yeah,
It may.
I could see why they'd be, you know, all over the rules.
Yeah,
And I
and,
think OWS requires that it's under plexiglass.
Glass.
Well, and I've also seen some art shows that they don't want, if you ship it or whatever, they don't want glass.
Well,
right.
yeah.
Or even, or
Plex.
plexiglass is fine, but yeah, they don't want glass.
I can't pass these both around it.
But it has to be under that.
Right.
So you're painting here in
Okay, let's see if I can get that. Horizon line. Since I don't have Payne's Gray, I have Moon Glow. Let's try a combination. We'll do Aussie Red Glow, Moon Glow, and Graphite.
This is for you.
I'll use this card and I won't have to clean that one off. Now let's see if I can keep from making a real big mess.
Is that like Corel? Your palette?
Oh, I don't know. It's something I found cheap. It's so crazy. I mean, the more I have, the more I've got like 10 of these different ones, different places, and I've got stuff on them, and I won't clean them off because
Might use them.
I'll use them.
I have no room for stuff like that anymore.
I stack them up. They're dried out, and I stack them up, and I'll come back and use them later. So Moon Glow is one of my favorites. It's probably featured in my swatch book quite a bit. Aussie Red Gold, it's bright. And that's part of what's in those. You know what? I'm not going to do Growth Light. I'm going to do Road Night. Did I bring Road Night? I did. Yes. Separating. So this time I'll do it with some water across the top, down to, but not on the horizon line. Connie, am I in the, everybody, am I in the? Okay,
Yes, you
good,
are.
good.
It's working great.
Your hair looks nice too.
Thanks. I appreciate that.
So that dry space is just dry space between the wet?
Mm-hmm. That's my horizon line. That's where I'm gonna stick the pigment. And after I've gone across there and run out at the other end, I try to not just go straight. And this could be interesting color choices. Wow. Moon Glow I use Moon Glow a lot in skies for drama.
Which one is the moon?
It's a purple, it's coming up here, purpley blue. But it looks like I'm gonna have to add a little to that too. Might end up a hot mess. That's moon glow.
Okay,
Yeah, let's do this. Moon glow and road night. Connie, this isn't a family heirloom I'm on, is it?
What's the gold color you're using?
Aussie red gold. Yeah.
That's very nice.
And another way to make that move across is just use your fingers. And road night. Did I have it on there? I think I did. There's a lot of paint down here. Make some happy little bushes. It's doing some interesting stuff. And there's that wavy paper. Sometimes this wants to stay in the line where I put it the first time, and I usually don't like that. So that almost looks like cerulean, the way that's separated out. I don't know what's in moon glow exactly, but it gives some interesting effects.
thinking I should see a prairie dog.
It does look kind of deserty, yeah.
It does.
It might not be water at all. Connie, am I in the, everybody, am I in the? Okay,
Yes, you
good,
are.
good.
It's working great.
Your hair looks nice too.
Thanks. I appreciate that.
So that dry space is just dry space between the wet?
Mm-hmm. That's my horizon line. That's where I'm gonna stick the pigment. And after I've gone across there and run out at the other end, I try to not just go straight. This could be interesting, color choices. Wow. Moonglow tends, I use Moonglow a lot in skies for drama.
Which one is the moon?
It's a purple that's coming up here, purpley blue. But it looks like I'm gonna have to add a little to that too. Okay. Might end up a hot mess. That's Moonglow.
Okay,
Yeah, let's do this. Moonglow and Road Night. Connie, this isn't a family heirloom I'm on, is it?
What's the gold color you're using?
Aussie red gold. Yeah.
that's very nice.
And another way to make that move across is just use your fingers. And Road Night. Did I have it on there? I think I did. There's a lot of paint down here. Make some happy little bushes. It's doing some interesting stuff. And there's that wavy paper. Sometimes this wants to stay in the line where I put it the first time, and I usually don't like that. So that almost looks like cerulean, the way that's separated out. I don't know what's in Moonglow exactly, but it gives some interesting effects. It does look kind of deserty, yeah.
It does.
It might not be water at all now. It might very well be desert. That's a good point. Yeah, and certainly, you know, you could do this with a lot of different color variations and have it.
It really looks fun.
It is fun. It's. So when Connie and Carol, are you the ones that, who else said that they stretch their paper? Shirley, sorry.
Paper only on certain, depending on what I'm doing.
And do you use water activated tape to do that? To
No, what I do is I follow what Mary White in her book, you just run it under your tap water,
Mhm.
and I put it down on the gator board, staple it down,
Staple it, yeah.
and once it stretches, then I tape it.
Okay, and that's what I tried to do here, but it's not, but still got, I think what I did on this piece, I don't think I let it stay wet long enough before I stapled it. It hadn't expanded as much as it was going to, I think.
I would run it under the water on both sides.
Okay.
Make sure it is sopping
Yeah.
wet, drip it off, and then put it down, staple it.
Staple it
because it's
immediately.
gonna be like a drum.
Now, this is stapled, but now I got ripples on the corners, so and I was using the water activated tape, and that's a whole nother
No.
pain, because it doesn't, it's either too wet and doesn't stick, or not wet enough. Yeah. I find this whole art practice to be a series of problem-solving exercises. Sometimes I like that, sometimes I don't. Well, that's very interesting.
Sometimes I don't.
Any other questions? Anything you want to see? Yeah, okay. You're welcome.
Do you use a hairdryer at all
Sometimes.
at this point?
Sometimes. I tend to not too much with this unless I've got something, unless I'm trying to hurry, which I did bring a dryer, but because I do think it makes it dry just a little bit differently with a hair dryer. If you do it faster, it's just not going to move as much, and which maybe you want and maybe you don't want. So, but I do use it sometimes, and I'm really not liking these buckles. I don't want lines there.
The buckles in the clouds are nice.
As long as it's not just going straight down.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's mindful of a
Yeah.
rainstorm
Yeah.
in the distance.
Yeah, that's true. It can be.
You might want to try to iron your watercolor paper afterwards,
Yeah.
because that will take care of it.
Yeah, I've done that too. It's what I'm finding frustrating is while I'm doing it and it's sitting in a puddle and creating blooms that I don't necessarily want. That's why I really started. I think it was that pink flower when I was like, I'm done with this. I'm gonna stretch it. I'm gonna stretch it in the middle of my painting. I wet it all over the back because it was just I was trying to do too precise, and it was creating problems for me.
You can
So
work off a block too.
yeah, I do that too, but it depends. It doesn't always keep it.
Yeah, sometimes it block buckles too.
Yeah, it does. It does. It depends. But,
Oh, you mean
well,
Yeah, I
and
think the block, even if you get that real wet, it's still,
Do you use the same
I
thing?
still think sometimes it buckles.
it does for me. It has. Yeah, if I'm getting it that wet, it's gonna buckle. But if you come up with any questions or anything,
So
Reach out.
The picture you have,
I'm sorry.
picture you have of the black man,
Mm-hmm.
what kind of paper were you using?
And that is a clay print. So what did I use? Did I use hot press or cold press?
That class.
We use cold
cold
press.
press. Cold press.
Yeah,
I know. Did I use that?
I don't know.
I think I
supposed
did. I
to.
think I used cold press. Yeah, I was supposed to. I think I used cold press.
Anybody
I'll go
else?
check. It's at the MAC. It's in the lobby of the MAC right now.
The skin texture is so beautiful.
Yeah,
Not this last
that was that was a class several of us were in that Stan Miller did that in Piqua. It was a good class, definitely, and that is. I think that was really the first time I started using just a triad of 3 colors, and
Yeah, he was big on that.
yeah, and I kept doing that for quite a while, and doing it more, and those are all transparent colors. These are not necessarily transparent colors. The granulating pigments, some of them are
Does it
kind of
say on here
transparent.
somewhere that they're granulated? How do you know?
It doesn't say on here. It does say on their website, and they sell a sample thing that's about 4 or 5, and it has all the characteristics on there, whether it's granulating, whether it's staining, whether it's transparent, how transparent, whether it's light, how light fast it is, and I reference that a lot. A lot.
Good to know.
Yeah, I don't always care, but when I want to know, yeah, I reference that. I like this color combination. Very different for me. Yeah.
I think what you were saying earlier was your abstracts allow people to put themselves into and create their own environment
Yeah.
from what you started. So here
Yeah.
you have a desert with a rainstorm.
Yep. Agreed. Yeah, I think it from like being in the gallery with the artery with 15 other artists, and it looks to me like abstracts are pretty popular in general abstracts, and I think that's part of the reason. And I also feel for a lot of the photographers that I feel like are not as popular now because people have the idea that they can do it themselves. That doesn't mean they can, but they have the idea that they can. So it being something more out of something someone else is going to create, I think, is part of what I think tends to make it more interesting to people too. Depends, but it's not just all about what I could sell. It's what I like doing and what can allow me to keep doing it and justify continuing to do it. So, thank you so much for your kind attention. Thanks.